The Department of Home Affairs has been taken to court for failing to register births on time. About 250,000 people have been waiting for several years to get their late birth registration applications processed. The Legal Resources Centre wants the court to order the department to develop a clear and comprehensive plan to tackle the backlog and prevent future backlogs. For more on this, we are now joined by the Home Affairs Deputy Minister Njabulo Nzuza. Deputy Minister, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What's the department's response to this application that has been brought against the department, considering that the department already has a policy with regards to late birth registrations of 30 days?
Yes, good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to all the viewers at home, and thank you very much for having us here. I think the first issue I would just like to mention is that we are in contact with the people who have sent through documents for court, and we have resolved 14, or we have resolved actually 12 out of the 16 cases that they had mentioned in the court papers, which means that out of the cases that are remaining, it's only 4 out of those that they had raised with us. And I think I must also make it clear that in terms of the 250,000, it was actually an estimate that they made. According to our records, we only have about 33,000 cases of late birth registrations that are sitting with us, which to us are not really an issue of a backlog, because in a year, Aldrin, we process about 868,476 just in the last financial year, total births that we registered. Out of those, we had a total of 129,000 above 31 days to 14 years, and then 14,000 of those were 15 years and above. So if you relate the 33,386, which is really a moving target, because you remember each and every year we get new applications and then we have to resolve them. But if you compare them to the 868,000 total quantum, it's really not much of a big backlog that we can say we are dealing with. But we are processing the issue. We are in contact with the people who have taken us to court so that we find a way. But also beyond that, we are making interventions of making late birth registration much more easier. If I can share with you, Aldrin, for instance, the registration of those who are above 31 days but below 1 year, it was being done by office managers. But now we are going to have those being done even more by office managers, as well as adding the scope of the 1 year to 14 years being done by office managers as well, which means that the 15 years and above, which were done by provincial managers, will now be done by district managers. So we are having systems to make sure that the backlog does not accumulate, but it is a moving target really, because each and every year, actually each and every month, we receive additional applications, but applications that are with us are 33,000. The 250,000 mentioned was really an estimate from documents from some time ago.
Yeah. So if the department is then able to process and deal with at least 12 of the 15 cases that has been brought to the department, what is holding you back to make sure that you're able to deplete what has been referred to as a backlog, although you argue it's not that much of a big backlog, but it is 33,000 people who don't have IDs, and we know the impact that this have on their livelihoods and able to navigate the systems that require identification.
Yeah, I must make it very clear, Aldrin, that we are walking a very serious tightrope here between protecting the National Population Register and also making sure that we identify people. Firstly, in terms of our civic registration records, I must make it clear again that South Africa is number 2 in Africa. We are only beaten by Egypt, which was able to open health facilities, which is something that we've also done. Out of the 16, we have resolved 12, and it's the 4 that is outstanding. In those ones that are outstanding, it's mainly documentation that is required. Yes, we subscribe that under no circumstances should children, environment in which they are born, prescribe how they must be registered. But we have to balance, because there is a lot of corruption and lots of things that happen when it comes to the introduction of people to the population register. Like you'll have a person 20 years old coming from another country saying that, look, I was born here, my parents have passed away, please register me. So we have to put in internal control measures to make sure that it is the right set of people that we are admitting to the population register. And again, the issue of 33,000, it's a moving target. Today, we are going to receive applications for late birth registration. Others are above 31 days, others are 15 years, and so on and so on. And we try and clear them as quickly as we can. As I've indicated also, the mechanisms that we are putting in, for instance, to make early birth registration easier, is not to require documents from parents when they come to register their children, because they are already in the population register. We just need their biometrics. Those are some of the things that really delay us. But in terms of regulations, we are setting those systems in place to make sure that we push the registration and make it much easier. As for the 250,000, I must make it, even they themselves, they indicated that these were estimates drawing from historical data. The number of late birth registrations that are sitting with us are 33,386, and it's a moving target because new applications come in, but we try and resolve them with speed.
Yeah. What's the major, or what are the major reasons that we have these late birth registrations taking place?
Aldrin, it's a very sad thing, and I can tell you I've been crisscrossing the country on issues of birth registrations since 2019. The main issue is that parents do not register their children on time, and sometimes children are left with their grandparents without them being registered on time. So it is really about the circumstances under which children are born that really denies them that particular right. And that is why now we are looking at changing some of the regulations to make it easier. Sometimes it is the issue of knowledge, sometimes it's the issue of cultural practices where people say, no, we can't register the birth of a child in a hospital. I still need to go back home and get some traditional functions done. But even then, we really encourage parents to register the birth of their children within 31 days. So what we are doing with this is that we're trying to do what we call universal registration. That is why we are pushing everyone to do early birth registration, so that everyone who's born in South Africa, who is a South African, born of South African parents, must timeously and expeditiously get their identity so that the child is not negatively impacted. So parents must know that by registering the birth of your child early, you are actually giving them opportunities, you are actually giving them a bright future. And we also plead, especially with the younger parents, please don't leave parents with your own parents or grandparents of the child without having registered the child, because that is what we see mostly now. I meet 20-year-olds who say, no, I was left, I don't know who my parents are, I can't have trace of them, and as such, I do not have a birth certificate. And you then have to go through various stages to really ascertain the citizenship of that person.
Yeah. One of the other issues that the applicants have raised was that it is so difficult to get this late birth registration done because of the process involving, for instance, the verifying and then the interviews that are taking place. Is there a way to make it less cumbersome while at the same time ensuring that you do not compromise the population register of the country?
Indeed, that's exactly what we're doing. We're working on the regulations right now. For instance, the late birth of people between 31 days to about 14 years, because we have seen them as less risky. We are taking them now from district managers, because previously interviews will have to be done by district managers. We are now localizing them to a local home affairs office, which means that those interviews will now have a speedier turnaround time. Yes, we are aware of the risk that involves branch managers having power to decide who enters the population register and so on. But we believe that as we are building towards a digital home affairs, our AI will be able to learn all of those things and be able to pick up irregular regulations. And also, we are now taking those that were being done by provincial managers, the ones of 15 years and above. We're now taking them to district managers. We hope those will also speed up the process. What we've also done is to get the executive leadership of the department involved. I've done some actually myself in Swane. We have went to the areas in Mpangeni to actually do more. And I can tell you now, we are working on some around Polokwane in Limpopo so that we tackle this 33,000 in a project mannered approach. But in terms of systems, that's what we are doing. But also we must make early birth registration easy. And that is why we are saying now in the regulations, people must not need to come with their IDs for them to register the birth. We'll just capture their fingerprints, verify them online, and then subsequently be able to register the birth of the child. It is absolutely in our best interest to make sure that we register children on time so that they can have a better.
I'm speaking about a digital home affairs and introducing digitization as well. Tell us more about the new digital IDs and passports, how those will work, and also the introduction of expanding some of the civil services that were being offered at the various banks.
Well, basically, we are in partnership with banks. We've been doing it for some time, but now we are upscaling. We're targeting more of branch-based, of bank-based branches where we'll work with various banking institutions to make sure that we offer more efficient services. What we want to do first is to move everyone from a green barcoded ID to a smart card. And that means that we will have captured their biometric facial recognition, and that allows us to have a digital wallet for passports, for identity documents, even for people who are traveling. I mean, just recently we launched the electronic travel movement, the what we call the ETA, which is part of our digital platforms. But in terms of birth registration, which is the main issue here, is that we are developing a module, what we call eBirth, which will allow us to register births electronically, even the births that are happening overseas. Because we've realized that there's a lot of challenges with people, citizens who give birth whilst they are not in the country, and now they have to move the children into country for them to register them. So we are providing those eBirth modules to make it easier. But also it will allow us, because out of these 868 children I'm talking about, it is not including those of foreign nationals that we deal with. So now we are saying that, yes, we are spending a lot of time in hospitals issuing out notices of birth for foreign national children, but that work is not accounted for anyway. But in terms of the eBirth module, we'll be able to account even for the foreign national births that are happening in the country, giving us a total picture of the births that are happening in the country. The digital ID will give us a 360-degree view, a whole view of an individual, where they transact, what they are doing, which will also help us in as far as revenue collection, and also improve services for our customers so that they can interact with us anywhere they will be. Even when they are at home, they will be able to interact with us through those digital platforms.
All right. And just a final one, going back to that question in relation to the court application that has been brought. As it stands currently, considering the negotiations that have been taking place, do you see an out-of-court settlement?
Well, it is something that we are looking at getting, particularly because we are resolving the cases that they had highlighted. And I think if we are able to display also to them that, look, we are not at 250,000, it's not true. We are sitting at 33,000. And these are the systems that we are putting in place to make sure that birth registration becomes much more easier. I think out of that, we'll have resolved the issues. And I don't see us having a need for us to go to court. But we are developing a responding affidavit to the issues. Some of the issues I've mentioned here are contained in that particular affidavit, and we hope for a very fruitful outcome. Look, at the end of the day, what we are concerned about is that all children must be registered and they must have their identity, regardless of the circumstances under which they were born.
All right, thank you so much for your time. The Deputy Minister of Home Affairs there, Njabulo Nzuza, on an application that has been brought by the Legal Resources Centre, alleging that around 250,000 people still don't have their IDs, and they are part of a group of late birth registers or registrations, but the department saying that that number is actually at 33,000. It's a 7th